Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video, we'll be talking about one of the most influential and the most important topic in the world of economics, which is game theory. So before starting, I would like to give an introduction about the game theory and who founded it, what's the meaning about it. The formal study of game theory was in the early 20th century, and in this, the main foundation, the basic foundation was led by John von Neumann. He was a really, profound and an influential person at that time, a really master in economics, quantum mechanics, and all. With economist Oscar Morgenstern in the book of 1944, The Theory of Games and Economic Behavior. This was the time when the civil war between the US and the USSR was also taking place, also known as the Cold War. This was because of the nuclear tension between both the countries, and it was the time when they actually find out, about the game of theory or theory of games and economic behavior. They were also awarded with the Nobel Prize in economic science in 1994. So, what is really game theory? And to understand this, you need to first think in a perspective that in every situation of a life, we take some decisions that really have a very important meaning or a very important part in our life. So this could be anything, deciding your career. Also it can not only be your career but also the futures, the country's future as well. It could be politics, in the business as well, in sports, and even in personal relationship of individuals. And in this way, game theory is something that really simplifies the process of how to come up with the best decisions or the most strategic or the most efficient decision to make in that condition. So it really helps you. And the real outcome of this is that two or more participants, are dependent upon one or two choices. And it really falls under the game theory. And game theory just provides a structural framework for understanding and predicting the strategic behavior in this competitive and cooperative settings. So one of the examples that we can actually go with is the USSR nuclear arms race, which was a real world game problem. And this was the time, I just told before as well, it was the time when the game theory came. So, before starting, I would just like to give an overview or a context about what was the US and the USSR nuclear arm race. So, basically, at that time, the USSR, also known as the Russia, found out about the nuclear weapons or how to make nuclear atom bombs like that. And this was something which created a lot of tension since US was scared that US was in a very vulnerable position that Russia could bomb them. And this was the case that the Russia also felt, since US could also bomb them, so they kept on multiplying with the US, the nuclear bombs which they had. At one time, it's actually a data that US had more than 700,000 nuclear bombs with them. This is a very, very big number if you see at that time. So it's the very iconic, application in the game theory or how which occurred during the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. And both the at this time, the dilemma was faced by both the superpowers revolve around whether to build or not build nuclear weapons. And this was due to the safety of each other's country, and also about the nation's interest as well. Since being a nuclear country, being having a nuclear really gives you the strength, because you are able to in a way threat other countries as well. Okay, I can you know have a nuclear attack on you. So in this case, this is a very important part which really took place. So imagine the payoff matrix. So I'm going to show you one diagram. This is not the Python one. We'll be making on a Python one as well. But this is the, the most easy way I could actually tell you. So over here, you could see this is the title, which is the armament of nuclear weapons. Basically, you could say, try to make new nuclear weapons. Should the countries make nuclear weapon? And this side is the United States and Russia. Both have two options. Either they could build new nuclear weapons or they don't build, as the simple thing. And over here, try to understand either in, I would say, try to understand in the monetary or uh nuclear weapons. In both the cases, you try to understand. So what will happen if United States built a nuclear weapon and Russia also built a new weapon? So in this case, if in this case there will be that both the parties made the nuclear weapons, and what will happen is they will have a negative ratio. That means they could either lose money, both can lose money, it can be a it could be something, they are not able to get a crunch of it, they are not able to get the profit out of it. And if we if both this was the case that both the parties made the nuclear weapons, what will happen if United States made the nuclear weapons but Russia didn't? In this case, the United States would be at an edge, and that edge is that they have more nuclear weapons than Russia. And this is goes vice versa as well. If Russia made new nuclear weapons and United States didn't, so this would be case as well. They will have, minus 20 of, either they will have a shortage of minus 20 nuclear weapons, or they will have a loss of minus 20 million or billion or $1 trillion of, loss for them. What will happen if both the parties made no weapons? So there will be no contrast, it will be equal. One another example that I could actually give about on this is the setting up of factories. This was something I made raw data on, you know, paper and sheet. This is the first data. So over here, there are two companies, Toyota and Honda. I would like to, tell you the case study about this as well. It was in the Indian market back in 2004. I believe this was the time. Since 2004 to 2009 in India, the car manufacturing and the buying of car purchases were really high. Now, of course, it really depends upon the income level of the family, but generally there were more buyers in the Indian market for related to cars. So in this case, both two companies known as the Honda and Toyota uh, were wanting to enter the Indian market and try to, expand it. So there could be one reason to expand it. You either build, you advertise, you market your product. This is the only way, you could try to expand it. And this is the case not only with Toyota, but also with Honda. So over here as well, as we saw, in this diagram, that the United States had two options and Russia as well. In this case also, Toyota had two options. They could either build, setting up new factories, they could either build, more factories, or they did nothing. And this was the case with Honda as well. So if so this is in $1 million, what will happen if Honda also built and Toyota also built? So in this case, both will have 16 million of profit. And what will happen if Toyota didn't, build a new factory, but Honda did? So in this case, there will be a profit of $20 million to Honda, and Toyota will only have a profit of $15 million. So there's a $5 million of deficiency. And this case also lies if Honda, vice versa, if Honda didn't, build a factory, but Toyota did, this will be like $15 million will be on the Honda's pocket and 20 on the Toyota. What will happen if both didn't build anything? So it will be 18 million, 18 million. Now, the question states here is that what is the best option for you guys? What is the best option the company can, choose between these? Now, if we take a very, a rational guess, it would be, build a new one. at least you get a $20 million of profit. Now the question may also be, why not 18? We're getting $18 million of profit. But you try to understand that the company is also getting $18 million. You're not an edge. You are not in an edge. You don't, have something, a moat. You don't have that. You don't have a factory. So in this case, the best example is to, build a new factory. In the same case, if we, try to look at the US and the USSR case, what is the best option that you could find here? It's simple. You either build or you don't build. There is nothing like, you build and the person won't. Because, and if you ask me, I would say in this case, you try to build a new one. Since if the person didn't, if Russia didn't build, but United States did, so it will be a loss of, minus 20 nuclear weapons or $1 million for Russia. But if they did, you only have a $5 million. We try to understand this more, but one thing that we could, guess with this is that if both the nations build nuclear weapons, like both incurred an enormous cost and risk, resulting in a loss of $5 million each. If one nation built weapons while other did, the builder will gain a dominance. So this is what edge is, and edge is something that we try to have in training as well. So this also works in the real world, the politics, the the nation's interest as well. So in this situation, the optimal is to a mutual outcome, whether neither to build or to build. ठीक है and in this case both choose to build or due to fear of being at a disadvantage or leading a suboptimal outcome. This behavior aligns with the concept of Nash equilibrium, and this is very important. This thing, the US and the USSR and the the Toyota and the Hyundai concept, this comes under the Nash equilibrium, where no player benefits by changing their strategy independently, even though the outcome is not the best possible for both. Now, before starting with the the Python background, I would like to tell you what was the actual conclusion about this. So during the US and the USSR, what these two countries did was they did a cross check on each and other's work. For example, there's a if you have conducted an exam, there's a third party who will check whether the exam is being rightly being done, is rightly being executed. There is no cheating, there is no malpractices. The teacher over here is responsible. Students are in well dressed, they're at their you know the allotted seats, and there's a discipline, there's a code of conduct being followed, and this was the case between the US and the USSR nuclear arm race as well. So they did a mutual check, and it was not like okay, I have 10,000 or 1 million nuclear arms, and we have a mutual consent, and US told me to disarm my nuclear weapons, and they will do so. Oh, in one day, I did 1 million of disarm. No, not like that. They did in a very systematic way. Like 1 year, we'll do only 300 or 3,000 or 30,000, and same will be done by another country. So this is what the game theory, or this is what the strategic uh, key role they played as people. They played as countries, or as the presidents at back that time. And this is not something used in politics or in the nuclear race as well. It is something that we as people could apply this to our interest, our career or our future or our life as well. So I think I have talked a lot, so we should go for the Python code as well. So I would like to explain this, and then you can, download, or you can download this, or you can able find this on my GitHub as well as on my Substack. So the first thing is, importing the required library. So we import NumPy for data manipulation, and then we do matplot library, and then we do NashPy. This is a library with two algorithms on two-player game. So basically, just remember this, that the game theory is played between two players only. This is what I have learned till right now. Well, I don't know about the depth, whether it is played by more than two, but in generally it is played by only two people. So it's just like, a heading which I gave, Cold War payoff. So here you can see the matrix. Okay, 10, 20, 1, 15, 10, 0, 20, 15. This is the case, we followed in this as well. You're able to try to learn this. So, for example, if the US built, they will have a 10% up. If US didn't build, and if Russia also built, they will also have a 10 million. And if they build 20, if US built 20, and if Russia didn't, it will have a 0. So this is the case, we try to put over here as well. But over here is -5, -5, but over here it's 10 and 10. So we could, this correction needs to be done, but it's okay. We try to I tried to took, a different example to showcase better. And this is how you create the game. So your game is the Nash dot game, and bracket USA underscore payoff, comma USSR underscore payoff. And then we try to print the US payoff matrix in another, and we then try to print the USSR payoff matrix in one segregated. And then we, find the Nash equilibrium, and we try to print it, and we get the equation either 0, or the USSR equation 1. So this is the strategic probability for the US and the USSR, and we plot the whole payoff. We plot both of the graphs on a payoff matrix. For the US, we are able to see that we have also created kind of a heat map for US and USSR matrix, to try to better understand what it's actually talking about. Now, I'll stop talking and I'll come to the discussion. So over here you could see that the US payoff matrix, if over here you could see US strategy, if 0 equals to build, 1 equals to not build. Over here it is 0 equals to build, 1 equals to not build, which is the same. So what will happen? And I try to understand here as well. What will happen if US build, but USSR didn't build? So in this case, US will have an edge over the USSR. So it's like 10-0. 10 comma 0. So what will happen if US did not build and USSR did not build? What will happen in this case? So in this case will be this one, 15 comma 15. What will happen if US built but USSR also built? So in this case it will be 10 comma 10. It's like this. You try to understand. You, in the game theory or in general, you try to have an edge over your competitor, over your player. We'll better understand this by the prisoner's dilemma. So this is another topic under the game theory, and now we'll understand that. So before going further, I would just like to give you an introduction about the prisoner's dilemma as well. So this is, one of the most famous conceptual game in the game theory. So we try to, in this, we try to have two players. Like the one is the two irrational individuals, which might not cooperate with others or may cooperate with. Try to understand this. What the prisoner's dilemma, which I'm using, it's like a prisoner, like, for example, now I'll try to, let me just stick to the text and what is written, and then I'll come to my personal example. So over here you could see that prisoner B, wait a minute, I'll show you the, okay, I'll show you this case, and then, it's better understanding rather than reading. So over here, let's say there are two prisoners or two suspects, Ron and David, and both are culprits. Both have been caught by the police or the cops or FBI, anyone you want to say. And let's say you can just say anything. Okay, they murdered someone. They, had some insider trading, or, they just had a burglary or something. Now the government caught them. Now the police or the government give them two options, that either you confess or you don't confess. So don't confess. Or over here, David has two options: confess, don't confess. Ron also has two: confess. If he confess and don't confess. Over here, now you try to understand. If Ron confesses and David did not confess, that means in this case, Ron will be free and David have to, have an imprisonment of 10 years. And what will happen if Ron confessed and David also confessed? They will have equal 5 years Ron, 5 years David in imprisonment or in the cell. What will happen if no one didn't confess? So in this case, the answer is that Ron uh, don't confess. Ron uh, did not confess, and David did not. So it will be 1 year both. Now you will say in this case the most strategic or the most optimal decision is to choose don't confess one, because you will have 1 year only in the imprisonment. But you try to understand this. What if Ron came to this conclusion that okay, I won't confess? So this should be a mutual coordination in both the parties. What will happen? What will be the chances if David confessed? In that case, he would be freed, and you will have to suffer 10 years. So what the optimal decision over is, of course, there's a one in this case, this both in the extreme. Either you could spend 1 year in jail or you could spend 10 years. And but in this case, you try to understand. You have 0 or 5. That's it. It's something, it's better than, 5 is better, is better than 10, but worse than 1. And 0 is like better than both. So in this case, the optimal decision is to confess rather than not confessing on your decision, because in this case, you are on a edge. If you confess, you'll only be in the imprisonment for 5 years. But if you don't confess, it may happen that the other person may confess and you have to suffer 10 years. This is something that you guys and we should understand what this is actually talking about. Same with the US case as well. In this case, if US stated that okay, we won't build, in this case they have a higher loss. If you try to understand what will happen if Russia built. So in this case, there's an option of building, or either you try to have a mutual coordination in both the parties, or you build. You try to be proactive. You try to take your stand. One of the most important, studies, something that you could actually, try to relate to this is that game which is really famous nowadays, which is, steal or split. I don't know if you guys know this. It's very popular in the YouTube. There's some pool of money, for example, $10,000 or $100,000, and there are two people with options. Either you split or you steal it. If another, so the case works like if the person split and the other person split. So for example, there are $10,000, each would get $5,000. And if any of the person do steal and the other did split, so the steal one would get all the 10,000. So it's something that you could actually relate to both these cases, because it's only different in extreme edges. And what will happen if both the parties steal? In that case, they'll get nothing. This is what's happened in that game as well. So in that case, you should have a mutual, you know, you should have a mutual, cooperation, a mutual, talk to another person. In that case, if I would say in the split or steal, I think the best decision is split. But it's something that you cannot decide, because there's also, a party that you may not get if the person did steal. And you try to understand this, and now we'll try to understand with a tree diagram. But I'll like to tell about this. So this dilemma underpins the countless real life situations, like companies setting up prices, nations engaging in environmental treaties, and everything. You are deciding with your friends whether you take this course or not, or either you should go to this course. So also it matters in that as well. Now, wow, now we'll actually go to the code part. Over here, it's the prison dilemma. So over here, we need, little bit about it. So about the mat plot, it's basically, you try to plot the graph. There's no use of this. but there's a network X. So network X is used for, creation and manipulation, or, study of the structure, the functions of the complex networks. And now we'll use this. So over here, we have player A, which is Ron. In, I think, what was the case? Okay, we had the same case. That's great. So in the Ron case, we have, if Ron confess, so it's a label confess. Ron not confess, label not confess. In player B, there is David, which will respond to either if Ron confesses and David also confesses, it will be a 5-5 years. If Ron confess, David not confess, it will be 0 minus 10. So that means the that David have to, be in imprisonment for 10 years. And if Ron did not confess and David confessed, that means Ron will be free from the prison, and David has to, be in the prison for 10 years. And this last is, Ron confesses and David does not confess, so it will be 1 year each. Now, we try to make the positions with a clear layout. So this is basically, I try to build this on the tree diagram, so that it's like the X and Y axis plot, nothing else. And then we, draw the graph. The figure is 10 minus 10 comma 6. And here it is, I just close this and here you go. So over here, they're like, now it's very different from what I have over here, but the the sense is clear, You'll try to understand if you'll bear with me. So there are two options. For example, try to see my cursor while I'm, explaining. So there are two options. If Ron confesses, so it can have two outcomes. David also confesses, or David does not confess. In if David confessed, 5 5 years both. If David does not confess, Ron would be free and David have to go to the prison for 10 years. Same case over here is also followed. So I think you try to understand what is game theory and how this thing actually works. Now, um, when I go to the why game theory is actually important, and then I'll try to give you another example or the prisoner's dilemma. So basically, game theory is important in economics. You try to understand your competition, try to price your product, market dynamics, bargaining and all that. Politics, you try to have a mutual cooperation with the other country or the other party, and treaty formulation, which we actually covered in the US and the USSR Cold War. Business, how you design your pricing strategies, supply chains, and the competitive analysis that you have. In biology, it's like explaining your evolutionary strategies and animal behavior. So like, in this is game theory is something that, it's a benefit or, not a benefit for both the parties. If the both parties, uh, be mutually connected, say, agree to it, both will have a benefit from each other. And one of the example in the biology or in the animal kingdom I could give is about, the deer. If you talk about the deer animal, if I show you the picture once, this deer. So they, have a disease. They actually have a disease which is like, they get some insects into their body, and it's something that, very dangerous, since it, reduces their lifespan over the time. So in this case, now what they do is they try to lick themselves, try to lick themselves with their, saliva to try to, remove that ticks or the insects from their body. Now the problem they face is like, they can't turn 360, you know. So it may happen like, this deer, this won't be able to reach at this spot. I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm just saying this to you guys. So in this case, they need another companion who could help him, or help him or her. And so over here, the thing is that for that other animal, it is a time consuming. It will take a lot of time. It will take a lot of, saliva. It will take a lot of, risk, since you are in the kingdom, since you are in the jungle, and there could be, time when animal may attack while you are, doing, this thing. Now, for them, this is also like a split and steal or the prisoner's dilemma as well. If they this could also happen in their case, that one of them just ditch them, you help other one to remove his takes or her takes, but he didn't help you. So in this case also, there's a mutual benefit that both the party have, and this is in the biology or the animal kingdom. In the tech, it's like developing algorithms by choosing human choices in complex system. And you could say two parties like OpenAI or Perplexity have a joint venture or a joint company together to try to expand the market in the AI term. Also do that. So in conclusion, so game theory like elegantly captures the essence of the human interaction or the human behavior, the tension between the both the parties, the rationality and the irrationality, or the collective welfare or the benefit that both the parties could have with each other, whether explaining the intense standoff of the USSR or with a simple prisoner's dilemma. One of the best which I have read or have actually taken an interest is about the evolution of trust. This is like one of the best videos or the topic which I've actually covered about the game theory as well as the human behavior. In this case, I won't go in depth about this, but I will try to understand, like it's like the ability of you, how much you trust your partner or the opponent, and how much generous you are. So I won't go to this topic. This would be for another video. But if you want to, learn about this more, it's the title is the evolution of trust. You can see, what this thing talks about, tells about, and what you can conclude as a person, and how could try to adapt, or you try to take it in, and try to um have a role, and how you could actually try to implement it in your life. It took a lot of time to get that word. And the game theory shows that what seems like an independent choice are deeply intervened. It's a principle which continues, to shape the economics, the politics, and blah blah blah, the decision making. Understanding the game theory equips individual and institution with foresight to navigate an increasingly interconnected and competitive world. This is, something which is a really good topic, and I'll be providing with all the graphs, all the code on the GitHub. If you guys want to make this one, or you have any doubts related to this, you can ask me. For this, I would like to end. Thank you for watching.